In this session, I'm going to discuss the business model and where it actually fits in. Now, when you start a business, a new venture, the best place to actually think about, or best time to think about your business model, is exactly when you start. Now, many people think that your business model, if you start up, whether it's without money or with with a business plan, with asking for money from investors or however it may be, the point is you need to think about your business and where you're going with your business. Now, that is strategic thinking, and it actually requires for you to think a little bit in the future, which most of us, don't know what's going to happen. Now, there are two ways to think about the future. The one way is to think about the future as what will happen to you and your business, in terms of what will happen in the future in your market, in terms of you and your business. And the other way to think about the future is actually to decide how you're going to design your future, the future of you and your business. Now, that is what the difference, what we refer to as between causal thinking and effectuation. Effectuation is where you are designing a future for your business and you carve that future out instead of trying to predict the future and try to respond now strategically in ways that you think the future will be like. Now, there is some element when you start out small that you may need to that you might think that you need to know what the future for you holds, and that's not necessarily the case. So there are many examples out there. If you think about Elon Musk, I like him as an example because he's really carving out a future. Do you think that Elon Musk has predicted space travel? Many people currently think that Elon Musk is crazy. He's a crazy engineer, but somehow he's making money. Okay? The electric car. Everybody is waiting for a competitor in that market before they enter the market. If there's no competitors, then there's no industry. Right? So think about that. Here is Elon Musk. He creates the electric car. Then he realized he can't be alone in this industry because then there's no industry, isn't it? So what he did is he released the plans in an open source manner to the other car manufacturers, and in that way created an industry. So an industry has competitors. So he needed competitors. So if you understand how business works and when you try to find out whether it's a good idea or not, you always look at whether there are competitors. Now, in this case, there was no competitors in the electric vehicle market. Maybe some small hybrid cars kind of thing, but it was not really successful. So he created the industry by sharing the ideas with the other manufacturers so that they can start building also electrical cars. In that way, change the perception over time of the public so that they are willing to buy more of those vehicles because they become more and more available. And because they become more and more available, other things like the batteries will become cheaper and innovation will go, and it will become better because the innovation will improve. Now, before he shared those plans, or around that time, he actually bought a battery manufacturing plant because he knew that is where the critical development is and not the car itself. So if you think about this, he's actually creating an industry and not just a business. And that's a difference between effectuation thinkers and causal thinkers. Now let's look at that in terms of how that affects the business model that you think of when you start off in terms of your business. When you think about your business model from a causal way, you will look at what other competitors are using and will try to copy them, which makes you second best, third best, when you enter that market, it makes you kind of not, the innovator, not the first in that market. Really, it doesn't. In terms of that, it is a successful strategy to follow, and a way to conduct a business. But if you really innovate and you find ways, and like I have explained many times, there are different ways to start a business without money and with low risk, and where you actually have risk sharing in the highest risky environments like space travel. Okay, so we will share with that in a different session. But let's look at how your business model is thought of during effectuation. So in terms of the effectuation thinking, like what Elon Musk has done, is he look at a bigger picture. Where is he taking this industry? And he's creating a business model for that industry. So where did all of this start? So he created the first business in the 1990s, which was basically an internet business, selling advertising space and things like that. And really, that didn't, that took off, and he sold that business. But that was not really the ultimate business. He knew that he had to wait for technology and so on to become a bit more mature before he entered the space travel industry. He then started PayPal, and he sold PayPal. PayPal was not his ultimate business also. He used that to get resources for his next venture, which was the electric car. And then he bought Tesla from someone who struggled to get it off the ground. And from there, he started various other companies like the Boring Company and so on, in order to create to help him create the tools for his space travel company. But guess what? He's not alone in a space travel. NASA, of course, had done this in the 1960s. And Russia, there was a space race. So it was not really, he is not the first in that industry, but what he's first with is getting other people other than workers and government officials or astronauts in space. You want to create space travel. That's what is new. So neither was he first with that, because in 2004, Richard Branson, another dreamer, has actually also started that same process. And I think there's already then an industry. So Richard Branson is literally the person that created the industry in terms of space travel. Elon Musk wants to live on Mars. That's what is different there. Whether it will happen or not, we don't know. The time when I made this video, neither of the two have sent people in space yet as tourists. So it's not really there yet, but they're getting there. Okay, so these two concepts, effectuation versus causal thinking, they really advise where you're going with your business in the long run. The one is effectuation, is where you carve out and design the industry, and it's a completely new industry. There's no history really to go on or try to make predictions in that industry, because no information exists, or very little, if any. Whereas causal thinking, you try to predict what's happening in future. So in that way, you design your business model around that, and you might end up with a similar model than your competitors. So I hope this helped you understand how the different thinking advise your business model. So it also depends on where you are at. If you're going to create a business that is already in an existing industry, then of course you follow the causal thinking process. Except if you're going to disrupt that industry like Uber did with the taxi industry, because that's also based on causal thinking, a completely new way. Not trying to predict how many people will go onto a platform before they, create the product. So they created the product, prototype, and designed and tested it with the market. And the first prototype was basically to use Twitter, something that exists. And then they slowly but surely created a business around that and a more intelligent platform. So I hope this helped you understand how the two ways of thinking advises your business model.